Well, sorry if I am a couple minutes late this morning. Look what came in the mail day before yesterday. It came from, I got a couple copies of this. And the folks at Llewellyn sent it to me because it is the Russian version of Llewellyn's big book or complete book of ceremonial magic, which is actually 10 books. Well, actually, it's 11 books and an epilogue. Uh, it is a huge compendium of magical wisdom that Dr. David Shoemaker and I edited, and we brought together uh, 11 or 12 of the world's greatest living magicians, experts in their particular fields, to write a whole book to contribute to this section, a whole like a mini book. There's 11 or 12 mini books in it, and the some of the authors in it are like David Shoemaker and I, and David Rankin and Sam Webster and Dennis Hawk and Dr. Stephen Skinner and Marcus Katz and Aaron Lecht. Oh, and Chick and Sandra Tabitha Cicero have a book in there. John Michael Greer has a book in here. A book that they've contributed just for this. It's just not a reprint of something they've written before. David Allen Hulse, uh, Anita Kraft, and Randall Boyer did an insanely good Kabbalah book in it. And our friend Brandy Williams wrote an excellent, thought-provoking epilogue to it. Uh, it's available in English too, in several editions from Llewellyn. And I think a month or so ago, I also showed you the version that was printed in China and translated in Chinese, and it was in. They split it up into 2 volumes, but this is just absolutely gorgeous and has all of the. There's well, anyway. If you have any Russian friends, send them off to the bookstore and buy that. Uh, 2 things. Yesterday I teased you with what I thought I would have time to address. I found a typescript of notes that I threw together of a vision that I received after a particular Enochian magic session that we did at Monday night class for the purpose of getting insight on a previous incarnation, one of our previous incarnations, or the incarnation of who knows what they are. But it's obvious that there's a chain of experiences that each of us pop into this dimension already programmed with. And we try to explore that in by using techniques of Enochian magic. Many or several decades ago, we discovered that one particular great major Enochian spirit, EHNB, whose name is spelled EHNB, is particularly good at and cooperative in helping us receive visions of previous incarnations. And just to remind you, here's the Enochian tablet that EHNB is there, EHNB. Okay, so there's four rows there of 5 squares, lettered squares. And this is kind of how it is. The top square would be the top row would be the entire elemental universe of air. And under that, the entire elemental universe, when I mean elemental universe, I'm just not talking about water and, okay, I'm talking about the entire everything that's waterish, airish, okay. The next row is Nanta for earth, and the bottom row is Batom for fire. Now, the entire first column is the spirit aspect of each of those elemental universes. And it's hard to see, but in this diagram, but actually all 4 other letters of the line live inside that E. Okay. So really, we have to put that E under a microscope to see 4 more sections. A section for air, a section for water, a section for earth, a section for fire. And of course, in tarot, it's easy to see how that all plays out. The EHNB column would be all of the aces, the ace of swords, the ace of cups, the ace of discs, ace of wands. And living inside are the 4 court cards. The prince would be the air of that particular element, and the queen would be the water, and the princess would be the earth aspect of that ace, and the knight would be the fire aspect of the ace. So, and you sort of see how the order of that is positive, negative, or active, passive. Here, we're over here with this hand. Active, passive, passive, active. Okay. Now this active, passive thing, I'm doing this to show you all of this. The active, passive thing is the nature of spirit itself. Okay, there's an active and a passive spirit pentagram, in other words. So spirit is a force that's created by the alternating current of active and passive. It's magically magnetic. It's a magnetism. If you want to look at it in 19th century terms. Okay, and the access to spirit is a tightrope that one walks between the active and the passive, the male and the female. Okay, and it's not the negation of those two opposites. It actually is the dynamic trigger spark that is holding all of that together. Okay. So we got spirit at the top there, and got active and passive. So just the few examples of active would be speech, and its passive thing would be silence. Egyptian god Horus with the very active sign of the emperor, and the other side of Horus, Huparkrat, with the sign of silence. Active, passive, active, passive. In magical ceremonies, the active process of prayer. But it doesn't stop there. There's the passive process of waiting or listening. Other things would be chanting and waiting, or orgasm and afterglow. Up on the tree of life, we want to project it there. Beast, Babylon, Hadit, Nuit. Then fire, water, air, earth. Active, passive, active, passive. Okay, it's proactive waiting. That active, passive thing is truly what makes this tick. And we can look at them as all these fundamental, I mean, really fundamental concepts, powers, tendencies are all sort of pictured right here in this simple 20 square Enochian tablet. And we can look at all of these forces and personify them as great angels, if you will. X-harp would be the great angel, or let's say an archangel of air. And Hakama would be the archangel of water. And the disk's archangel would be Nanta, and the wand's archangel would be Bitum. But you can put all of those archangels into one box, their first letters, and just work with EHNB. And that's exactly what we were working with in a Monday night magic class when we discovered that EHNB seemed to trigger to magicians with the intent to have the experience triggered visions of previous incarnations. And there's only 2 Enochian calls that are needed. The very first Enochian call, which sort of activates the whole neighborhood's power line, and the second call, which specifically switches on the E and the H and the N and the B. Now, over the period of time, we pronounced EHNB in different ways. When we were first scrying it, David Wilson, our scryer, says, I think he wants us to call it a henba. And that's pretty good, a henba. But you know, you could pronounce that any way you think you need to. EHNB. 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 You know, whatever. Which leads me to a digression about Enochian pronunciation. I did Crowley's version, which is sort of a Golden Dawn version of how the Golden Dawn wrote out the Enochian pronunciation key. And they added a Hebrew vowel sound after every consonant. So if the word was Zims, the Enochian word for Zims, Z-I-M-Z, they said, oh, that sounds weird. Let's just call it Zodame Zod. Zod for Zim, Z, May, Zod, when it's just Zims, okay? And I learned the first 2 calls and did it for years using the old Crowley Golden Dawn pronunciation. But once I started to get into magic, or more serious on a private level, and began to understand how the Enochian language was delivered to D. and Kelly, it's pretty clear that ZIMZ was meant to be pronounced Zims. Okay. That being said, every time I record or present the first or second call, and I use the old pronunciation, I get people, uh, listeners responding, "Oh, that's so stupid. Oh, my ears just, oh, they broke when I heard your terrible Crowley Golden Dawn stupid version." And I can understand that. Uh, and and many times it comes from very, very knowledgeable people, at least knowledgeable people, book knowledgeable people that came to the same conclusion I did, that you pronounce it just pretty straightforward. But I'd like to remind all of us that perhaps the greatest modern Enochian document ever penned or in existence is Crowley's Vision in the Voice. His visions of his own personal initiatory journey by using visions of the 30 Enochian aethers. All of those were triggered by that stupid, painful, ear-insulting Golden Dawn type Enochian pronunciation. And personal experience of working with a group of people for decades and encouraging everybody in a class setting to take their turn pronouncing the Enochian calls and doing the Enochian calls prior to bona fide sessions. Some of the best, clearest, most dramatic, most awe-inspiring visions have been triggered by the most god-awful butchering of Enochian calls that you could possibly imagine. Terrible pronunciations that cause the whole class. You know how hard it is to laugh in church, or how funny things become when you try to not laugh in church when you're a kid, or at a funeral or something like that. Pronunciations that were so bad that the rest of the class, sitting in the dark with their eyes closed, are trying so hard to stifle giggles. But as we try to hold our mocking giggles inside, that seemed to squeeze some kind of visionary juice into our brains, and all of a sudden it stopped being hilariously ridicule triggered funny into some of the most impressive visions that we've ever heard. So I've come to the conclusions that the Enochian entities, the Enochian spirits, don't give a shit if you're speaking with a thick accent. They're just incredibly impressed that someone is giving a shot at speaking their language. They're sort of like the angelic French who will appreciate any attempt at you speaking their language. And the language of the calls triggers some kind of melody, and they instantly recognize the melody. They're attracted to the calls as you do them. And when they come into your presence, and this is a very linear, very oversimplified way of looking at it, but when they come into your presence, they bring their level of consciousness with them. And if you are passive enough, you also are wallowing in that vibratory level of consciousness that your guests have brought into the room with them. And if you're open, if you're passive at that point, but actively passive, if you're observantly passive about what is going into your mind in those brief moments when these, we'll call them angelic presences, are in your living room, you can observe an important vision, a vision that's yours and yours alone, a vision that if it's going to mean anything to anyone, it's going to mean something to you and you alone. You can share what you saw, but no one's going to truly appreciate it like you because it's your vision. But anyway, but I digress. I just ran across this vision that we had that I took the time to do. Now, if I was going to suggest something to sort of beginning Enochian magicians, that first of all, you keep a notebook. Start a notebook. Even if you say, I got nothing to write today, well, start your notebook. But in this particular case, what we did was we sort of opened our little living room informal temple, banished and just normal stuff. And then recited the first two calls. First call to open up the little tablet of union, and we just had a paper. We didn't have to have the wooden boards and everything. Now, if you know what you're doing, you've installed it. That's all. Don't need the toys. Just need to understand the dynamics of that. Did the first call to do this whole thing, and then the second call to do that with the intent of having the spirit EHNB give us a glimpse of a previous incarnation. Now, several members in the class had pretty clear visions to relate. And I had on several occasions right there in the class said, oh my God, I remember this. And for a couple times we had our scryer who volunteered to scry for the benefit of everyone. Oh, tell me my incarnation. Can he tell me my incarnation? It's just sort of like a medium situation. And that was impressive too. But this was just, can you give us all a vision of a previous incarnation? Well, that evening I didn't get very much, okay? And it's sort of hard to facilitate a group and be undistracted enough to get something good. But I asked that mine be shown, if possible, in a dream. And now I'm really good at dreaming, but I'm very bad at remembering what they are. I mean, the second I wake up, I'm just totally in another dimension and find it hard to get but this one I wrote down. Desert. I am a soldier, a foot soldier, perhaps a sergeant. There is a battle raging. An officer on horseback stands up in his saddle, waving a sword over his head, shouting orders. Those of us near him strain to hear his orders. He stops in mid-sentence, freezes in his pose. He then collapses and falls from his horse, dead. His subordinate officer dismounts his horse and mounts the horse of the fallen officer. He orders me to pick up the dead officer's heavy rifle and hand it to him. I'm confused. Quote, "Don't you want his sword?" I shout. He screams the brand name of the rifle, and I hurry to give it to him. He then orders me to mount his horse. So the horse that he just got off of, okay? I am promoted. So in other words, the officers just stepped up one in line. He replaced the fallen commander, and I replaced him. An envoy of enemy approaches us under a white flag. He is riding a camel. Before he gets close, my new commander orders me to withdraw and circle wide around and ride up behind and then beside the envoy. I am to make him think that I am his escort, but when I have a chance, I am to kill him. That vignette happened first. Totally doesn't make much sense. The sword, the gun, the camel. But that instantly goes into something else. Back home, Ireland. I'm out of the army and dead broke. My old home has been taken over by an English lord. What's left of my family have been displaced and, along with our neighbors, are forced to grovel to our new English masters for menial work. Because of my army experience, I am bolder than my peers, but not smarter. I sneak into the house of the local asshole lord. It's broad daylight, perhaps morning. I'm poking around the kitchen area. I hear the old lord stirring in the next room. I don't care. I'm looking for something. I notice that a straw or a thatch is poking through the ceiling where it meets the wall that separates the kitchen from another room, the room the old lord is in. I think the roof must be thatched because I get an idea that if I set fire to the straw poking through the ceiling, it will soon catch the roof on fire and destroy the house and hopefully kill the old lord. I hurriedly look around the kitchen and see an oil lamp on the table. I take off my cap and quickly shake as much oil into it as I can. I then ignite my cap from a small coal stove where a large tea kettle appears to be perpetually warming. I quickly jam my flaming cap into the straw that pokes through the ceiling. I'm very excited, almost giddy. The smell of the oil reminds me of some event in the army. Now, it's little things like that. If you can imagine, that has nothing to do with the plot, but it has something to do with the stream of consciousness of the adventure that I'm tuning into. Just like when, sometimes I visit uh, uh, other friends when I'm traveling and stuff, and I'm taking a shower and I'm using their shampoo, and it's a shampoo smell that I haven't smelled in 20 years or longer. And that brings back all of those other thoughts and all of those other places and things like that. And that's what happened in a dream, in a vision. The smell of that particular kind of kerosene ignited memories of that, an earlier time in that incarnation. Anyway, it's small, but I was impressed by that. Uh, so far, no one has noticed the fire. However, 3 or 4 of the Lord's men, local boys I knew by name, but were now part of his goon squad, walked through the kitchen door. One had a rifle, and the other carried clubs or pipes. I think they were just coming in to warm themselves, perhaps have tea. Before they saw me, I threw my flaming cap on the floor and quietly, I guess as quietly as I could extinguish it. Oh, no, as quickly as I could to extinguish it with my boot. As they were walking in, I met them at the door. They looked totally surprised to see me and for a moment froze in their tracks. I said something like, "Thank God you lads are here. I was just coming for you. I smelled smoke and thought something might be wrong. It looked like the roof's caught fire. I'm going for water. Give me a hand." They said nothing but turned their attention to the ceiling, which by now was blazing away. In their initial confusion, they believed my story and did nothing to stop me running out the door. I ran as fast as I could, across the yard, across the road, into and out of a drainage ditch, and into a muddy, sloppy bog of some kind. I hear shouting, and a shot, then another shot. The boys had figured it out. I dropped to the water-soaked ground and got as low as I could possibly go. I was face down, half sunken in the mud and water. The thatched roof was blazing beautifully. I was so happy, so thrilled. The fires seemed to be the only warm and colorful thing in a cold world of grays and blacks. I now hear the barking of the hounds. I'm very cold. I'm very lightheaded. I don't even want to run. I now realize I've been shot. My thoughts go to my army days and all the men I've seen shot and dying. I think to myself, it's not so bad. Well, that's my vision that I asked EHNB to reveal to me a previous incarnation. And nothing happened right at the time of my activeness of doing the call and my active passivity. It had to wait till I got really passive, unconsciously passive, and then in Technicolor black and white, I had that vision. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you today. We've got dear friends coming down from Oregon to pay us a visit today and hopefully take us to lunch. And so I got to get what I have to do is stay out of Constance's way as she gets ready to. I'll try to be helpful, but I'm not very good. Anyway, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.